This video is one of the scariest things you can watch alone at night, and this is not clickbait. If you think I'm joking, you'll regret it if you finish watching this video. What happens to people who watch this video at night? Some say they never sleep again. Others say they hear whispers in their ear at night. And some have even reported seeing shadows out of the corner of their eye. Don't believe them? Then you might be one of the lucky ones who won't suffer the same fate. If you want to find out what happens to those who watch this at night, then you need to get ready. Because what you're about to see will haunt your nightmares forever. Warning before we begin, do not watch this video alone at night. You have been warned. The darkness was heavy, thick, and suffocating, all-consuming, infinite, stretching endlessly in all directions. It pressed against her eyelids, seeping into her pores, chilling her to the bone. She could feel her heart hammering against her ribs like a frantic bird trapped in a cage, each beat echoing the dread that filled her. In the oppressive quiet, she could hear her breathing, each inhale a stark reminder of her vulnerability, each exhale a silent plea for courage. Then she saw it, a flicker in the abyss, a pinprick of light that seemed to mock her terror. As the seconds stretched into an eternity, the light grew, twisting and contorting, until it resolved itself into a shape. A monstrous silhouette emerged from the gloom, taking on a form that seemed to embody all the fears that had ever haunted her. The creature loomed over her, its presence suffocating, its eyes burning with a malevolent light that seemed to pierce through her very being. Panic surged through her veins, paralyzing her, freezing her in place as the nightmare descended upon her, stealing her breath and trapping her in an eternal moment of sheer terror. In the heart of the suffocating darkness, she found herself trapped, frozen by an indescribable fear as the monstrous silhouette loomed closer, its presence an icy grip around her heart. The creature's eyes, twin embers of malevolence, bored into her, stripping away her composure, leaving her raw with terror. Its approach was inexorable, its shadow enveloping her like a shroud, its promising an oblivion that both terrified and beckoned her. Trapped in the clutches of this dreadful premonition, she yearned for escape, for a glimmer of hope in the suffocating darkness, but found none. The silence was deafening, broken only by her own muffled screams that echoed within the confines of her mind, unheard, unanswered, a testament to her hopeless solitude. The nightmare pressed closer, becoming more real with every passing moment, blurring the line between fantasy and reality. And in that terrifying liminal space, she knew she was about to confront the most harrowing chapter of her life, a descent into a realm where sanity and nightmare intertwined. As the beast drew nearer, its menacing growl reverberated through the oppressive quiet, sending shivers down her spine. Each guttural sound tore at her composure, reminding her of her impending doom. Her mind reeled, grasping at straws of hope in the face of the inevitable. But there was no escape, no reprieve from the terror that awaited her. Trapped in the suffocating embrace of the darkness, she braced for impact, resignation settling over her like a leaden shroud. Her eyes, wide with terror, stared blankly ahead, reflecting the horror that had become her new reality. In the depths of her despair, she knew that once the nightmare fully consumed her, would be no turning back, no hope for salvation. Suddenly, she felt a searing pain in her chest, as though 1,000 needles had been plunged into her heart. The pain intensified, spreading like wildfire through her veins. She thrashed wildly, her body convulsing as if possessed, her screams echoing through the desolate landscape. But no sound escaped her lips. She was trapped in a prison of her own terror, unable to call out for help, unable to fight back against the unseen assailant that was tearing her apart from the inside. And then everything went black. Deep within the labyrinthine recesses of the mind, she found herself lost in a maelstrom of confusion and fear. Fragments of memories flickered like dying embers, casting long shadows on the walls of her sanity. Faces swam before her eyes, their expressions a blur of concern and sorrow, yet their words eluded her understanding. She sensed their worry, their desperate attempts to reach her. But the veil of her own making kept her shrouded in darkness, impervious to their concern. As she struggled to piece together the shattered fragments of her past, she caught glimpses of a life that now seemed impossibly distant. A life filled with laughter, love, and the warmth of human connection. But these glimpses were fleeting, fading into the abyss like shooting stars, leaving her enveloped in an even deeper gloom. The weight of her isolation pressed down on her, suffocating her with its suffocating grip. With each passing moment, the abyss within her seemed to grow, threatening to consume her whole. She grappled with the remnants of her identity, trying to hold on to the last vestiges of who she once was. But the struggle was a losing battle, for the darkness was relentless, encroaching upon her consciousness, threatening to obliterate her very essence. As the darkness threatened to engulf her completely, a single question echoed through the desolate landscape of her mind. Why? Why had she been chosen for this? What had she done to deserve this fate? The question hung unanswered, a cruel jest of the universe, mocking her torment, offering no solace, no explanation for the injustice of it all. In the face of this unfathomable torment, she found herself at a crossroads, teetering on the edge of despair. The familiar rules of reality had ceased to apply. Logic had abandoned her, leaving her adrift in a sea of madness. And the rational part of her mind, if there was one left, knew that if she didn't find a way to escape this mental labyrinth, she would be lost to the shadows forever. Just when her resolve threatened to crumble under the crushing weight of despair, a faint glimmer of hope pierced through the impenetrable darkness. It was a whisper, barely audible, yet undeniably present. It spoke to her of resilience, of the indomitable spirit that resided deep within her soul. With newfound determination, she reached out to that inner strength, drawing upon reserves of courage she never knew she possessed. As she clung to that fragile thread of hope, she began to piece together the fragmented recollections of her past. Seeking a lifeline to the sanity that had slipped through her fingers, with each fragment that fit into place, the darkness receded slightly, revealing glimpses of the world that lay beyond. Slowly but surely, she started to piece together the narrative of her life, the events that had led her to this point of utter despair. The faces of loved ones came flooding back, their voices echoing in her memory, offering her a momentary respite from the suffocating silence of her captivity. The familiar streets, the laughter of children, the gentle murmur of everyday life, all rushed back to her, painting a vivid tapestry of the world she had been so rudely torn away from. As she delved deeper into the recesses of her mind, she encountered pockets of resistance, areas of her past that had been deliberately obscured or erased. There were gaps in her memory, moments of trauma that her mind had tried to shield her from, but which now presented themselves as formidable barriers in her path to recovery. Yet she pressed on, driven by an insatiable need to reclaim her life, to piece together the shattered mosaic of her existence. With each passing moment, the boundaries between past and present blurred. The line between reality and nightmare became increasingly ambiguous. She found herself oscillating between the suffocating grip of her tormentors and the faint glimmers of hope offered by her recovered memories. As she journeyed deeper into the labyrinth of her own mind, she realized that the true battle was not against external forces, but against the demons that lurked within her psyche. The scars of her past, the traumas that had been buried, now loomed before her, demanding acknowledgement and healing. But as she confronted these demons, she also discovered hidden strengths, reserves of resilience and courage she had never known she possessed. With each memory recovered, she grew stronger, more determined to reclaim her life from the clutches of the darkness. The process was agonizing, like shards of glass piercing the raw nerves of her soul. Yet it was also exhilarating, like breaking free from the shackles of a prison she didn't know she was confined to. And as she emerged, battered but unbroken from the crucible of her own mind, she carried with her a newfound sense of self-awareness and strength. The journey had been perilous, fraught with peril and uncertainty. But the reward was immeasurable, a profound understanding of herself and her place in the world that defied the darkest of nightmares. As the first rays of dawn peeked through the cracks in the blinds, casting long, thin fingers of light across the room, she stirred from her slumber. Disoriented, she sat up, her heart pounding a wild tattoo against her ribs. The dream, if it had been a dream, receded like a tide, leaving behind unsettling echoes and a profound sense of unease. She looked around the room, searching for an escape, a hiding place from the horrors that had unfolded in her sleep. But there was nowhere to go, nowhere to hide from the specter of her own subconscious. The room, once a sanctuary of comfort, now seemed like a battleground, a silent witness to the war waged within her mind. With trembling hands, she got out of bed, each movement stiff and mechanical, as if she were a puppet controlled by unseen strings. The day stretched before her, empty and daunting, devoid of any semblance of normalcy. The weight of the previous night's revelations pressed down on her, threatening to crush her beneath their suffocating embrace. She forced herself to move, to function, to exist in a world that now seemed both familiar and alien. The effort was Herculean. Each step forward was a victory, a triumph over the insidious whispers that sought to drag her back into the abyss. As the hours dragged by, she grappled with the fragments of her past, trying to make sense of the fractured pieces of her identity. The memories once lost now clawed at her consciousness, demanding to be acknowledged, to be integrated into the tapestry of her present. She sought solace in the mundane tasks of daily living, in the simple act of tending to the garden, in the rhythmic repetition of chores, long relegated to the background. But even in these moments of supposed tranquility, the specters of her past found a way to intrude. The rustling of leaves became the whisper of tormented souls. Chirping of birds took on a sinister edge, sounding like mocking laughter. The very fabric of reality seemed to be fraying at the edges, threatening to unravel completely. And so she walked on, a solitary figure haunted by the ghosts of her own making, forever trapped in the twilight zone between sanity and madness.